If you're the kind of player who just wants an amp that's reliable enough to sit in the bedroom, on the gig stage, or in the rehearsal room without constantly worrying whether it'll quit mid-solo, this review is for you. You've probably spent a few evenings scrolling past endless tables of watts, channels, and speaker sizes, wondering which numbers actually matter in the day-to-day. The fear of overpaying for a massive, feature-laden beast that you'll only ever use at home, or worse, buying a tiny practice amp that can't keep up when you finally need to plug into a band, is real. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Fender 68 Custom Princeton Reverb is a 12-watt, single-channel, all-tube combo that's been pitched as a modern take on a classic studio favorite. What I really wanted to figure out was whether that modest power rating translates to usable volume when you're actually trying to be heard, and whether the all-tube design truly adds something beyond the usual Fender polish. I dug through a handful of forum threads, watched a few YouTube demos, and read the occasional owner post just to see how this amp behaves when you crank the room temperature up to live show and when you mute it down to late-night practice. First off, let's talk about who will actually benefit from the Princeton's character. If you're a guitarist who loves the warm, slightly compressed tube breakup that you hear on classic recordings, and you're comfortable working within a 12-watt envelope, this amp is right up your alley. The single 110-inch Celestion speaker is tuned to a mid-range sweet spot that lets clean tones stay bright and overdriven tones stay smooth, which is exactly what you want for blues, indie rock, or jazz fusion gigs where you're not fighting a wall of distortion. The built-in tube reverb and subtle vibrato are also a nice touch for players who enjoy adding a bit of space or shimmer without having to run external pedals. In short, the kit is a solid match for singer-songwriters, studio players, and gig musicians who value tone over raw volume. Now, let's address the other side of the coin who should probably skip this model. If you're primarily a heavy rock or metal player who needs screaming leads and a lot of headroom to sit on top of a full band, you'll find the 12-watt limit a bit restrictive. The single channel also means you don't have a clean overdrive switch at your fingertips, so you'll either have to dial in a balance that works for both or bring a pedal to get the high gain bite you're after. Moreover, if you're looking for a portable, battery-powered amp for street performances, the Princeton's reliance on a power cord and its relatively hefty combo chassis make it less convenient than some of the modern solid-state alternatives. When it comes to real-world performance, the first thing you'll notice is how quickly the amp reaches its sweet spot. At a modest 1,012 inches away, a clean rhythm part already fills a small coffeehouse setting without any hiss. Turn the volume up a notch, and you get that classic tube compression that feels natural rather than forced. I tested it in a rehearsal space with a 5-piece drum kit and a bass amp, and the Princeton held its own. The 12-watt tube output, while not designed to blast a stadium, does make a respectable presence when the rest of the mix isn't overly aggressive. The reverb is smooth and decays nicely, but it's not overly lush so it adds depth without muddying your tone. The vibrato is subtle, and it functions more as a texture option than a full-in effect, which is perfect for those occasional atmospheric touches. One of the hidden trade-offs of a tube amp like this is the warm-up time. A full tube soak takes about 2 to 3 minutes before the tone settles into that familiar Fender sweetness. That's a small inconvenience compared to a solid-state amp that's ready instantly, but the payoff is noticeable in the harmonic richness you get after the tubes are at operating temperature. Another practical point is the maintenance side. The amp comes with a 2-year warranty, which is decent for a boutique-style tube unit, but tube replacement isn't cheap. If you're comfortable swapping tubes yourself or have a local tech you trust, the ongoing cost is manageable. Otherwise, it's something to keep in mind when budgeting for the amp's lifespan. A frequently asked question I saw on forums is whether this amp can double as a practice amp for a bedroom setup without sounding thin. The answer is a qualified yes. Because the Celestion 10-inch speaker is fairly efficient, you can keep the volume levels moderate and still enjoy a full, resonant tone. The key is using your guitar's volume knob wisely. Pull back a bit on the guitar's output and raise the amp's volume for a smoother clean tone. Crank the amp a little higher and let the guitar's pickup drive the natural overdrive when you need that crunchy edge. This dynamic interaction is what many tube enthusiasts love.